Okay, we did it. We got here in the right place, the right time. Hi. Can you hear me? I think you're muted, buddy.
Hey, good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. So excited. Let me see. Well, I mean, goodness, you've been on the show before, but have you done it when we had the YouTube channel?
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe. I think maybe. I don't know.
Doesn't matter. Well, anyway, welcome back. I'm glad to see you, man. It's good to see you. We missed each other in Vegas, apparently. I left the day you arrived.
I was only there for like 4 hours. Like it was just like I had planned some kind of kooky layover so that I could go to dinner with everybody and then run back to the airport.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm sorry I missed you. Really.
That's great.
How you doing?
Of yeah.
How you doing?
Good. I have to ask you, I don't often keep track of your glasses, but are those new glasses?
Those are, thank you. I can't believe people are noticing it. It's weird because the other ones were blue as well. Although you can already see the little nostril thing.
Shoot. That hurts so bad.
Don't ask me where. These are new glasses, and also I have an identical pair. Exactly the same, except they're black, right? And
okay. Yeah.
And
I really like the blue. I think they're cool.
Thank you.
Hey, there you go. Yeah.
I forgot. Thanks for reminding me. The blue ones have the UV protection.
Oh, right. For looking at the screen. Yeah.
And that's great for my eyes, but it's bad for cameras because light reflects back.
Like a reflection. Oh, okay.
Gotcha. I'm supposed to wear the black ones when I'm on stream, which is what we're doing right now. So
interesting.
Thanks for reminding me.
That's cool. Nice.
Yeah. What about you? Do you get new glasses?
Actually, yeah. Not these. I've had these for a while, but I think one of the reasons I noticed them, first, they look really good on you. And then second, I thought, those look really similar to the glasses I just picked. They're green instead of blue. They're like, not like neon green or anything, but I'm trying to think of the green, teal, turquoise, like that kind of color.
Like the old Pivotal green?
Yeah, but more blue inside of it. Still more blue.
Okay, like that.
Anyway, yeah, I'll show them to you when I get them. But they're round like they had, and they're a little thicker like the ones that you had. So
sweet.
Yeah.
New glasses are good. I can't believe how many people have noticed the bright blue. I mean, it
looks really good. It looks really good. Yeah.
You got this. I appreciate it, but you got this giant blue background. You think that would just be a drop in the bucket of blue, a drop in the blue ocean. But no.
Yeah.
You are one of my favorite Joshes, probably in the top 3. Yeah, certainly in the top 3. And I'm really glad to see you again. Obviously, I know who you are. You're my friend, the one, the only, the amazing, the legendary Spring Security contributor and engineer, Josh Cummings. But can you tell people who you are? I mean, what do you do that you want people to know about?
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess personal stuff is good and connecting. So I'll just say a few things there first. The thing that makes me stand out from the rest of the Spring team is if you collect all of the kids that everybody has on the Spring team, I have half of them. Actually, that's not true, but I have 7 kids. No, I have 7 kids. Yeah. So my oldest is 21 and my youngest is 5. And they are 16 and a half years apart from one another. Yeah, it's a huge, enormous, unbelievable span of years. And I have one kid who's married. That's the 21-year-old. He got married rather young. But anyway, he's happily married. So I guess I have an 8th kid. Yeah. My daughter-in-law. And then the older kids are like seniors or at college or on missions or whatever. They're just doing a lot of different things. And then I've got a junior high kid and and 2 elementary school kids. One's in like 5th grade and the other's in kindergarten. So for the first time in 21 years, Josh, in the middle of the week during the day, there's nobody at home. That has not happened in the Cummings household since like Remy was born. Right, like back in 2004. So that is like far enough back that it was still like called CG back then. So CG security. So it's a long time ago. That's a little bit about me personally. let's see. We've been married for, I think, 22 years now, and just life is great.
Yeah.
Middle age is hard. Teenagers are hard, and you're always doing something that you're always saying a sentence that you never thought you would. But it's good. And
You've got a
then,
lot of practice, so I'm sure, I'm sure
hopefully after 20 years of experience, you don't suck at the thing you've been doing, right? But
right. When I mean, you're a really, really smart guy, and I'm sure your better half is even smarter. So between the two of you, I'm sure even your first go at it was great.
Went all right. Yeah,
hello.
So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Well, good to see it. That's great. I mean, and you joined the spring team last week, 20 years ago, 5 minutes ago?
A couple weeks ago. Yeah, no, I joined the team in 2018 in February. Yeah. I can't believe that it's been almost 8 years. I keep thinking about like that in some ways it feels like I've only been on the team for 5 minutes, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
And actually, what blows my mind about what you just said is that that 2018 is almost 8 years ago.
Yeah.
I haven't even been on there for 8 years. That checks out, right? If I did a vibe check on that checks out. But the fact that it starts in 2018 and that's still almost 8 years ago, that I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it's crazy. Even after accounting for like the COVID loss that we all kind of sometimes do when we're like doing math, like even if you take that back, it's like, holy smokes, that was forever ago. But yeah, it has been that long.
Okay. So these days you're working on you've been on security most of the time. You've been on the team, right?
Yeah.
And so what do you like? What do you work right now? It's I feel bad about yanking you off of your work. I know the team is
no, not at all. No. Well, so the thing I'm working on right now is honestly, it's one of the most exciting things that I've worked on to date. Rob and I have a similar starting story with Spring Security.
What's that?
What's that?
You both wrote books?
We both wrote books, and then they were like, you should come. So when Rob was talking about joining the Spring Security team, one question he was asked by Luke or whoever was doing things way back then, what would you like add to Spring Security? Rob said we should add multi-factor authentication.
Checks out.
And that was 12, maybe even 14 years ago. I have to do math now, 13 years ago, because Rob's been on the team forever. And when Rob was interviewing me, he asked me, what would you want to add to Spring Security?
Right.
And there were a couple of things there are some little gotchas that I've always kind of complained about. So I said those things like, if I could wave a wand, I'd change this the way that this is designed.
Right.
And then I said, and I'd add multi-factor authentication, because it's like, why is this not here yet? And so then fast forward, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, somewhere around there.
Right.
I had a little bit of time to throw together a multi-factor authentication sample, which was not very good, right? It was a first try at saying, here's what it might look like in Spring Security.
But it did work,
it worked. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it worked. And you could do a multiplicity of factors. It wasn't limited to just 2. And so it was like, most people only ever want 2, maybe sometimes 3, but it was expansive in the way that you could do that. And so it was cool, but it was still like a lot of boilerplate, and it just wasn't as flexible as I wanted it to be. So it just sat there, and people would ask us for multi-factor. We'd talk about it with some folks, and we're like, we're still researching it. We're still trying to find the right representation. And then about maybe a year ago, somewhere around there, I decided to build another one. I had some more time, and I thought, you know what? I think I'd do this differently. Like at a fundamental level, all I really care about with multi-factor authentication is what was the way you authenticated. And if I'm writing an authorization rule, and that's the basis of all security and Spring Security, I'd have an authorization rule that says, hey, what's the type of your authentication? If you're username and password, then I know that you're logged in by username and password. If it's this other thing, then I know you're logged in this other way, and I need you to do more in order to log in order to be able to fully authenticate. and what that turned out into was that wasn't as flexible as I wanted still. What it turned out into was representing each authentication as a granted authority. So when you authenticate as username password, now you get the password granted authority.
So you just increase. So, okay, can I take a
Yeah,
step back?
please. Yeah.
Spring security, the premise there is you've got security, you've got two concerns, authentication, authorization. Authentication is who's making the request, authorizations, what can they do? MFA, multi-factor authentication, is I want to have more than one challenge and therefore more than one proof of my credentials. And I want those things to be different. And the reason is why.
Yeah. So the reason that you want them to be different, and thank you for reminding me, Josh, I forget all the time that I do security every day and everyone else does it like once every 2 years or something.
Well, I'm
no, you're up to date on all of it, but like most people are listening, they're like, like what? I can't remember. Yeah. So yeah, no, thanks for reminding me. So you want multiple factors because the more factors you have, first, the better, the more proof that you have. You
don't want the same username and password 3 times, right?
Right. But yeah, so that touches on the more important thing, which is they need to be of a different nature. Because if I just ask you for 2 things that you know,
right,
then that's not a lot better than asking you one thing that you know. I already kind of asked you 2 things that you know, your username and your password. And if I ask you another thing, you know, like security questions, it just doesn't get me that much further, especially because a lot of people, all they do is security questions because it's awful trying to figure out what your favorite like third pet was or whatever, is they'll just put another password in. And then that will, it's just another password, another thing that you know.
And to lose as well, like is to leak.
Say what?
It's another thing to be leaked as well.
Another thing to be leaked, another piece of information that is repeated, right? Because how many, like, perhaps the biggest design flaw with passwords themselves is that humans can't remember them, and so you end up repeating them. Like, what else are you going to do? You end up repeating them unless you go to a space where you start using a password manager or something like that. If you're just trying to keep track of it all yourself, you can't do it. You have to write them down or you have to repeat them. And things that you know are all of the same nature, unless you've been able to delegate that knowledge to a system that remembers stuff for you.
Like a password manager,
Like a password manager. Yeah. So there are others that don't require your memory in order to work, or in order to prove authenticity. An example is proof of ownership. Sometimes you'll, like a lot of people, everybody is familiar with, hey, this is the first time you've logged in from this device. I've just sent you an email that's associated with the account. Go check the email, find the code, put in the code here on this page, and then we'll let you in, right? Right. And so that's proof of something that you have, which is you
be a proof of something I have, like a public key?
Yes, it would. So, right. So you can use public key certificates inside the browser, for example, an X509 cert, or you can use WebAuthn, which is a form of that, a passkey. So each one of those is things that you are in possession of and that you can prove that you have access to in real time.
Like mutual TLS as well, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah. Yes. Mutual TLS being the place where the server can prove to you that it has the certificate that was issued by some authority that you trust, and you can prove that you have a certificate that is also from an authority that they trust, right? And so it's another proof of possession type of factor. Because when you sign things, you end up signing them with your private key, and the public key is the thing to verify because you're the only one ostensibly that has the private key.
Sure.
So if you can prove that both you know something and you have something, then that's better. There's also one that is a slight difference from have, which is are, like you are something.
Right.
And the most common example of that, two common examples probably are like Face ID and your thumbprint.
Right.
Those are things that, you technically do have, but no one else could be in possession of those things unless you're like someone's pushing your thumb onto a thing or whatever. And so the third factor that people look for is biometrics, and that is the special classification that is something that you are. If I can get from you something you know, something you have, and something you are, then I have really strong, there are even stronger forms of assurance that we can get,
Right.
but I have very strong assurance that you are who you say you are, who you're claiming to be.
Right.
And so multi-factor has been around for a long time, and Spring Security hasn't had any dedicated support for it. And we also haven't really had any particular guidance for it either. Like, we might not have the support yet, but if you do this, then you can get it. And it's, we just haven't rolled it into the framework or something. And we haven't had any real advice for the community that is generalizable.
Right.
Like, maybe I have a conversation with one person about their company, what they're trying to do, but some kind of general set of guidance on, hey, if you're going to do this, this is how we would recommend. Here's the Spring Security idiomatic way to do it. So after each authentication, the challenge is, how do we represent the idea that we know you're authenticated, because that's true, right? You truly are. You gave me your username and password. We've authenticated that, and we have a certain level of confidence that you are who you say you are. It's not maybe as high as we want for every part of the site, but it is high enough for some part of the site. And one of the little cleverer insights is that, well, what if the only part of the site that gave you access to was the second factor? Right. And while Spring Security doesn't actually lock it down that hard, we want to be more flexible because we're like a framework. This insight of like, oh, actually, all I'm doing is you got just enough authority to see a section of the website, some section of the website. And if that section is just the second factor, it reduces down to simply a question of authority. That's the point, right? It's multi-factor authentication is really more about, at least in Spring Security parlance, about a growing collection of authorities that you're establishing. And then the authorization rules tell you, the authorization rules that you write state what authorities are needed to see these portions of the site or what have you. So what was cool about kind of how it all came together was I built a sample that was very similar to that I was able to change just two. It was just a spike thingy, but I was able to change just two Spring Security components with those things in mind, and get multi-factor authentication from Spring Security. It was quite shocking to me how close the code was at that point. And a little bit later, like 2 or 3 months later, we were on a call, and Rob said, I've been thinking, really, multi-factor authentication is about a sequence of granted authorities. And when he said that, and I thought about my sample, we both realized, hey, if we're both thinking the same thing, we're a lot closer than maybe we've thought in the past. We haven't examined it for a long time. So the thing I'm working on right now is introducing multi-factor authentication into Spring Security.
Is that in time for 7.0, you think?
Hope so. So we've got two of the major components in place for M3. Some of the things that not to get too much into the Spring Security weeds, but one of the things that's true about authentications is that they're immutable, and that's by design. And so after you establish authentication, we need some way to be able to like merge those authorities or whatever, some kind of standardized way to be able to do that. So that's in place now, where you can say, hey, the second authority or second authentication, apply it to the last one, and merge it in a way that's sensible. And the middle spot, which is what maybe I should do it in the wrong way. Anyway, I'll do the last one. It'll go out of order a little bit because it's chronological order.
Okay.
The one that we have in place is a simple way to declare the authorization rules, because the last thing that you want, like, the authorization rules are probably the most complicated thing for folks to represent. And
is there a way to weight different kinds of authentication to say I value this more than that? Or
that's a really, really good question. We talked about doing that, and for now we are not going to try and represent it with like a score or something like that. That is something that we could consider. It does seem that authentication is typically more discrete than that, and folks simply make a decision based on your IP address, based on your whatever, the collection of authentications you need to do. However, if things got standardized enough, I think it could be possible that people say, hey, I need you to have a score of 10 or whatever, and you authenticate in whatever set of ways that will get me to have that much confidence in what you're doing.
right.
But yeah, that's not the way it's represented in Spring Security. It's just a discrete collection of authorities. And one of the more complicated things to do inside of security generally, not just in Spring Security, is model your authorization. And so folks will be like, get it to a point where it works and then not want to touch it again because it's I've got it working now. I don't know what's going to happen if I make this change or that change. Am I going to now have a spot in my website that's not authorized anymore?
Well, and this is one of, we should come back to this obviously, but one of my other new favorite features is the granular configuration in Spring Security 7, this ability to customize just parts of the authorization.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. I just can't, like, yeah. We were working really hard actually to get that into 6 and it just didn't quite fit in and we didn't want to rush it. But yeah, being able to be modular, being able to declare a set of authorities over here in this module and one in this module, and have them only matter to like that module or to have them be able to collect if needed into a common one.
Now it's going to be possible to upgrade, and if you like the default and you want to just change one thing, you can just change one thing. Right?
Yeah. One of the places where that's a real win, in general, whether you're doing a modularized application or not, that's a win there. It's also a win from the perspective of like clarity as to what's going on. One of the use cases that I brought up while we were discussing all of this and how do we solve it on the team was, if you, let's say that you are a resource server and you've added Spring Boot and you've got the properties set inside of your application properties file.
A resource server is an API that's being protected by a filter that'll reject requests that don't have a valid Auth token.
That's right.
Okay.
And now you need to add some authorization rules. You must, whenever you declare authorization rules, redeclare all your authentication mechanisms. And so, so everybody has to declare authorization rules, right? So it basically undermines that part of the, I shouldn't say undermines, but it is at odds with the auto configuration that would like to just add that authentication for you. Yeah. And so now, because I have authorization rules, now below it, I need to say, Auth to resource server, like, do it again. Right. And that's another compelling reason. I think it'll play nicer with auto config. And yeah, people can just customize their authorization rules without having to redeclare their authentication mechanisms.
Right, and that's going to be useful because you're saying, hey, you've figured out how to get authentication though you want it. You've got your multiple factors. Yeah. And you're saying, you just said, like, you may not want to change that. Go on.
Right. Oh, yeah. So one of the things we worked very hard on with multi-factor authentication is you can imagine if we say, hey, this is a set of authorities. Now all your authorization rules say something like, hey, if they're an admin and if they've logged in this way and this way and this way, right? And now all your authorization rules blow up and become bigger because now they're listing all the factors as well. Okay. So we worked really hard to create a component that allows you to declare that one time, and then your DSL stays exactly the same as it was before, where the factors are implicit, where we take care of them internally as an infrastructural consideration. So that's that third piece. Right. The second piece is the middle piece, the one that we are working hard on. And that is, hey, if I'm missing this factor, Spring Security, let me tell you how to go get it.
Okay. So show the new authentication prompt. Show the different screen. Right. Okay.
If you're missing, if we're missing the web authn factor, what do I do? And to us, you know, we know what we need. We just need to know how to tell Spring Security the web, this factor, it's a string, right? Like this web factor that says web authn. When you see that, go to the web authn authentication page or whatever.
Oh, that's a good point. Does that mean you're going to have, because right now it's like there's just this one login page that gets more and more login panels.
That's
you know,
right.
you get username, password, you get the one-time token username field, and you get the
and once you have multiple factors, you really want those to be separate, right?
Yeah.
You really want a login page that doesn't have all the other factors that you're going to ask for in a minute, right?
Okay. I like that.
And so because of that, we need a middle component that knows how to responsively see which factors are missing and then go to the right page to obtain the next one, whatever it is. And the PRs there, we're iterating on it. And I personally feel like we're very close. I think Rob does too. I just don't want to speak for him.
Right.
Yeah, high hopes that that last component will make it into Spring Security 7. So
that's actually really cool too, you know, and it wasn't such a big deal like 3 years ago because, you know, you had usernames and passwords, you had tokens, you know, but now you've got you got magic links, you've got passkeys in the password, you've got tokens. I mean, there's a lot of factors now, you know.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because we've had forms of multi-factor authentication for a long time, like CAPTCHA, for example.
Right.
And we already talked about like passwords and stuff, but our security questions. But there are a number of authentication mechanisms that have never been added to Spring Security, in part because they're always sort of a single. They can't be enough on their own. Like just because you can do a CAPTCHA, I still don't know, like if you're trustable, right?
Right.
But it makes complete sense as an additional factor, right? After you've given me your username and password and your one-time token, let's say you're going through a VPN. And it's like, hey, you're going through a VPN. I need you to have this other factor as well, right?
Right.
Or you're a user that has signed up for, yes, please ask me more questions. I'm okay with buying into your new security mechanism, but the rest of the site isn't because it's opt-in, right? Those kinds of things become much simpler now and much easier to talk about in isolated circumstances, right? Because I can now talk about CAPTCHA in one way and introduce it as a factor. I can kind of introduce it anywhere along the way, even contextually, looking at the situation with the user and decide, yes, this authority is also needed for this user.
Oh, okay. This is awesome. I can't wait for both of these things, the granular config and especially the MFA stuff to land.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but notice you and I started a little late because I was indisposed for a minute. My apologies. But anyway, I'm just sitting here trawling the GitHub for Spring Security, and I couldn't help but notice that somebody is adding Spring Security Kerberos.
Oh yeah, Yeah, it's totally cool. Yeah. Now that has existed for a long time. Actually, it's like Spring Security SAML in that it was an extension maintained by a wonderful hero of a person for many years.
Right.
And then as things moved on and people moved on, it just sort of stayed and we pumped whatever life support was needed into it to keep the heart beating. And so then we folded in. Well, the first one of those was OAuth, right? So we folded in OAuth way back in 2018, 19. And then we brought in SAML in like late 2019. And so we haven't brought anything in since then. And now we're apparently bringing in bunches of stuff, right?
Auth server.
Yeah.
Yesterday, right?
That's right. Yeah. So Auth server is going to be in Spring Security 7. And Kerberos will be in Spring Security 7 as well. And another interesting thing that this isn't something we're bringing in, but it's something that I'm curious to see what happens. Way back in whenever, like 2021, I can't remember, 5 years ago, 2020. I remember 5 years ago now. we added Authorization Manager, the interface that kind of started this whole authorization journey that we've been on,
Right.
including multi-factor authentication. We added that interface. It was a simpler way to express authorization and to manage it and do all of that. And certainly authentication and authorization are the two big guns in Spring Security. And so to say, hey, we're going to replace authorization, that's a long drawn out process. And it meant new interfaces in a lot of places, new annotations in a lot of places, adapters in other places, migration strategies, and like just all kinds of stuff that has been ongoing for a long time. And it's still quite a big component for people to try to figure out how to, it's still quite a big component to try to help even large companies and things like that find a way to migrate. So one of the things that we're doing in 7 that I'm happy about and interested to see how it goes is we've moved the old Access API into a new module in Spring Security called Spring Security Access. So it still will continue to be released with Spring Security along with Kerberos and SAML and Auth and all of the different things. But it's moved to a different module so people can add it optionally if they are still dependent on Access, the old Access API.
Access Decision Manager, that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that way, if you don't include it, all you have to work with is you can just work with the nice new clean API and don't have to worry about the Access API. So all the dependencies on the Access API, the direct dependencies are gone now. They've been deprecated for 2 years. Well, I mean, everything has been officially deprecated for about 2 or 3 years, and started the deprecation about 5 years ago. But so that's really nice to see that to come to a close. So as with every major release, I'm kind of astonished at what we're able to fit in to be able to introduce Auth Server, Kerberos, move the Access API, add multi-factor authentication. I'm always so impressed with how hard Rob, Joe, and I guess myself were able to accomplish. It's really, I'm very excited about this release.
Me too. I mean, last release and this release are two of the biggest releases, not just in the security project, but in general of all the Spring projects. Huge features just being delivered that will change people's day-to-day experience of building software. That I'm a big fan. The fact that it's all now in the same code base for our users. I noticed that Joe said, the Maven coordinates will even stay the same, it looks like. So the version will be 7.0 for the Auth server. It'll still be org Spring Framework Security, Spring Security Auth 2 authorization server. No, it's not the same. It'll change a little bit. But basically, the fact that this code is just so, it's in the same code base, it'll be evolved at the same time. When there's a new pattern.
And I know this is important to everybody, making things as passive as possible. Yeah. It's really important to the security team specifically because we don't want you to get behind on the security norms, on the security best practices.
Right.
And so historically, Spring Security has been very, very conservative on how long to keep things around and how slowly to change things, or we'll support 2 or 3 things for a very long time, because we want you to upgrade. If nothing else, we want you to move to 7, and if you're on 5, we want you to move to 6. In fact, one of the things that I thought was really a cool thing that we did for the that I feel like it was a cool thing that we did was in the 5 series, is that we created a minor release that was just filled with basically flags and alternative components, so that you could opt into all of the 6.0 features before updating, make sure everything works, so then you upgrade to 6 and you're good. And we did the same thing with 6.5 to ensure that you can apply all of the new 7.0 idioms or settings or whatever in 6.5, make sure everything works, and hopefully that makes it easier. The thing I want most from everybody who uses Spring Security is upgrade. Because we're always working on making sure the security practices are better and better and better. And 7 is more secure than 6. They're all, like, we stand behind all of our work, but 7 is more secure than 6. 6 is more secure than 5. You know, so
which is by design, and it's very it's maintaining the status quo when the threats are becoming more pervasive is actually losing ground.
That's right. Yeah, you can't stay steady with security. It's a little bit of an arms race, a little bit of like someone's always at your organization thinking about how to stay ahead of attackers.
Good, and we want to help.
Yeah.
So that's really good. So Spring Security, and you've got Kerberos. You got you got the Auth server, which is like I've been doing this talk with Rob on and off, and I do it by myself for demos and all that. And it's just this very simple like passwords bad. Here's how to do passwords. Here's how to do one-time tokens and then pass keys. And then at this point, people start to realize, okay, this is not. Yeah. When they start seeing me use my freaking fingerprint to like authenticate to a Spring Security app, they start realizing, okay, this is actually way more powerful than
the thing. Yeah. Well, and let me combine the two thoughts right here. One of the reasons that it's so compelling to use OAuth, and that I strongly recommend that people use OAuth, is because you can go to a single place where now you can add multi-factor authentication. And so now with Spring Security releasing with multi-factor authentication, you can configure your authorization server to have multiple factors, and your entire organization gets that benefit because you strategically chose to put all of your authentication in one place.
Right.
And so it's I think that Auth server is one of the killer features of Spring Security because you can very easily put it all in one place.
100%. And yeah, exactly. We finished it with the Auth server, and now we've got the IDP where I can still use my fingerprint. I can still do magic links, but then I've got this backend resource server, and I've got an OAuth client intercepting the request in the browser, which does bring us to question time. We got some questions if we want to take them. First of all, we were asked by Peter here. He asks, in a SaaS application with multi-tenancy, Spring Security often requires heavy customization for handling tenant-specific authority and evaluations, residence restrictions, and permission evaluators. What strategies, patterns, or tools can help simplify or build better managed multi-tenant authentication and authorization in Spring Security? So I hope you brought your essay.
Here we go. So a couple of things.
Beginning and end, and make sure you've fleshed out the middle there.
The first thing I'm going to recommend is that you take a look at my 2019 talk that talks about multi-tenant authentication in Spring Security. It's the Spring One talk, and fair warning, like I was still learning how much I could fit inside of a talk. And so I if you look at that and you're like, oh man, Josh, you're getting pretty complicated and you only have 5 minutes left. And so that was a learning experience for me there right at the end, but don't let that clutter the principles that are talked about in the beginning. I mean, the whole talk I think is very informative, and I invite you to watch it. But then if you find yourself cringing a little bit right at the end because I'm like typing at 700 miles an hour, that was just Josh learning about like how to pace himself appropriately inside of a talk. But that's the first thing I would point you to. So if this answer that I give you right here in like 30 seconds doesn't suffice, I have a 75-minute talk that talks about the considerations that you should take into account when it comes to multi-tenant authentication and authorization. But a couple quick points when it comes to multi-tenancy, like sort of the TLDR of the talk. One, pick the right level to express your tenant. It's really tempting to put it all the way down. In fact, this happens once every few months, somewhere around there. Someone will submit a PR into Spring Security saying, hey, I want my tenant to be expressible right here. And we decline it because we say where you go is at the authentication manager level. And that's where your tenant is expressed. And once you use your tenant to resolve the authentication manager mechanism. And then after that, then everything else underneath is however you've instantiated it, it caters to that, precisely to that tenant. That allows you to have different authentication mechanisms if needed for per tenant, different user details, different sources from which you draw and whatever, all collapsed inside of the authentication manager interface. We haven't thought a lot about multi-tenancy with authorization. However, there's one point inside of the multi-tenancy talk that demonstrates how you can express multi-tenancy inside of your Spring data representations to allow you to bifurcate your queries to different tables or into entirely different databases. And since authorization is often expressed at the database level, that can be helpful to you to consider. However, it may be worth it for us to consider, shall we have so there's an interface in Spring Security called Authentication Manager Resolver. And that's typically where we point people to when you're doing multi-tenancy. Try not to put it lower down there, otherwise it just bleeds through everything. And that's a good spot. It's worth asking whether we should have an authorization manager resolver. That's not a conversation we've had, but I think it's arguable that I think it's worth considering, to your point about, is there a way in Spring Security to express multi-tenant authorization?
Nice.
And then the last thing that the talk talks about is representing that inside of the security context, representing inside of your principal. Because at the end of the day, even though I say, put your tenant all the way up here and don't put it somewhere else, we all know how complicated software can get. And so there may be cases where you need to do it. You need to put it somewhere else. Right. I guess I'm just remembering just now that I don't know if this DevNexus talk is published, but after that talk, I had some time to polish it for another few months. And I think that the DevNexus 2020 talk could be even better, of a resource, if anybody knows if that's available. But you can look for Josh Cummings DevNexus 2020, and if it's there, multi-tenancy, then that can also be. It's virtually the same information. It's just I found a way to not be so flustered right at the end, and so I invite you to check those out.
Cool. That's right. See, this is great. This is why I wake up in the mornings, to learn this kind of stuff. Let's see. We got another question here. Cheers from Finland. How easy is the Spring Auth Z server to modify for non-OAuth flows, or should Keycloak or so custom be used? And I think I could just say, Auth server instances are Spring Security. So
that's correct. Yeah. So I have demonstrated to folks before. And in fact, I think this was my last Spring One talk, was about using authorization server for SAML. And it's quite simple. I took out the OAuth and I put SAML in, and now it's a SAML. Now it authenticates via SAML. What it emits is important for you to consider, though. So, for example, if you treat Auth server as some kind of authentication federator, I think that's fine. You want to definitely prioritize what you're going to emit. And so if you're capable of, we accept SAML, we accept OAuth, we accept all these different things to authenticate to our Auth server, but we only emit OAuth. That's the ideal, is for you to delegate down, or federate is not quite the right word in that case, but get down to one authorization mechanism that you're now fanning out to the rest of your organization. But even if you can't do that, you can still have a multiplicity of authentication mechanisms, including SAML, and you can emit that if that's what you need to do. Though the only thing for which we have dedicated IDP support, like knowing how to emit something out in a way that a reliant party would understand, is OAuth. So we don't have any IDP support for SAML, meaning we don't have a component that allows you to create and sign an assertion, for example. Those kinds of things. We have stuff for to process an assertion and make sure it's good. So that's the kind of the loose answer, is it knows how to be an IDP, and it can be a hub, an architectural hub, just like Keycloak, for all of your other needs. And it's architecturally beneficial as much as you can to just emit one after this Auth server's collected all the different forms of authentication that it knows how to support.
Right. Okay. So use it as the aggregation, and then
and then all the rest of your infrastructure just speaks OAuth. That's the ideal. It's the same thing. It goes back to, I don't want each one of my individual applications necessarily to have to manage a multiplicity of factors. I want each one of them to be able to state here's the factors that are needed, but I don't, you know, I don't want them to have to manage that, and I don't want everybody to have to manage OAuth and SAML and Kerberos and whatever. So let Auth Server do that for you.
Okay. So we have a question from Dan Vega. See if I'm not sure if I'm getting that right, but I'm some guy Dan Vega. And he says, sorry if I missed this, but I'm on the road and you might have already covered this, but does the authorization server moving to Spring Security simplify MCP security, that's a whole other Oprah. That's the AI stuff for people who are just joining in and haven't paid attention to any of that stuff. Anyway, good question though. Great question. What do you think?
The way in which it would simplify it is sort of broadly the same reason why it's generally good to bring it in, because it allows us to iterate together as a team. Spring Security is pretty well defined APIs and interfaces at this point, especially with regard to OAuth. It's been around for a long time. So there's not a lot of sneaky, like I'm going to call this package private thing that would now be available to me because they're maybe in the same like jar or something like that. So just from a collaboration point, I think it will help. And from a, how should I say this? Like from a conceptual point, where the MCP spec is going to land, I don't know, but I know very early on, it was like your MCP server is a resource server and an authorization server, and it does this weird kind of handshake thing, and that's been evolving since then. But conceptually, it may land in some way that your MCP server acts in some form, both like an identity provider and a service provider. I don't know if that's where it will land, but because of that, it's nice to have it all in one repo. But I doubt from like a functional perspective it would actually help. It just helps because now we're releasing them all together, and that makes it easier for Joe, Rob, and I to collaborate.
Okay.
But nice. I could be totally wrong. Like I'll ask Joe and see what he thinks. Joe's our MCP expert right now.
Well, we'll just have to have him on the old show. I know you're all. I'm doing nobody a favor by dragging you from the work stream, but I really appreciate you taking the time. Oh, we got one more question. Look at this Q&A. Okay, let's see what this says. This question, I'm sure you'll speak to.
Yeah, so I've noticed a support for attribute-based access controls compared to their role-based counterparts in the Java system and outside. Is there any reason for this? You know, I think partly is because this is me being armchair, because I don't have the. I know a lot about Spring Security. I don't know a lot about, say, Apache Shiro or some of the others out there about, and the whole Java community at large when it comes to why they've made their own decisions. So this, first of all, is a little bit of, what's the word? Some of this is just not quite philosophy, but this is my theory. This is a theory.
Yeah.
When I think about authorization modeling, I think about it as a nesting kind of thing, kind of like URN, URI, and URL, right? You have attribute-based, and inside of that you have role-based. And effectively, a role can be thought of as simply another attribute. That's why I think of it that way.
Right.
Why Spring Security started with roles is because it was very easy conceptually to contemplate. Everybody has roles at their company, and surprise, surprise, however you organize your company is often how your code starts to look like, right?
Right. Conway, what do you?
Yeah.
He was so prescient in the 1970s.
I know, it's so amazing. And so Spring Security started out with roles because that's how everybody kind of thought about, hey, I need to give permissions to this person. Well, what's their role at the company, right? And then afterwards, OAuth kind of broke that up a little bit and talked about it in terms of scopes, which is a kind of attribute, in my view. And if you have the message read attribute, then now you can read messages inside of the system. So Spring Security itself I actually don't tell people that we advise role-based access control or that we advise any particular kind.
Right.
What we have designed Spring Security to be is your granted authority is what it means to you, in effect, right? And so you can house a scope inside of a granted authority. You can house a fact inside of a granted authority if that's the kind of authentication you're doing. You can house an attribute from your database inside of a granted authority. And so you didn't say this, but I would, if anybody else is thinking what I'm about to clarify, I would not say that Spring Security like supports any, not supports, advocates for any particular kind of authorization modeling, because at the end of the day, they turn out to be quite similar in my view. In fact, oftentimes you can adapt role-based into attribute-based simply by understanding that that role means this set of attributes. And so if you discover that's the role, you can map it to a set of attributes. And that's often something that I advise people to do when they're taking a role-based application and they're using OAuth. If they're an admin, that really means you should grant these scopes. So that way everything is scope-based inside of the application. And because you can do those kinds of things, it's information, at least for me, that one is really an adaptation of the other. And so direct support for a given particular model, at least when they're all attribute-based scopes, attributes, facts, those kinds of things, is just, it doesn't turn out to be quite as important anymore. But if you disagree with me, I would love to get a follow up from you and we could totally chat about it.
Right. And which, oh my goodness, what a perfect segue. As we wind down here, the question will always be, how do I ask more questions? And then this is the part where I ask you, hey, are you online? Do you want to be found? And if so, where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm on Blue Sky, and if anybody wants to type it out, I picked a username when I was like 13 years old, and so it's 13-year-old dumb, but I've just stuck with it, and it's hard to spell, but it's JZHEAUX.
Okay.
My handle, and you can DM me, you can at me.
But what's the full Blue Sky? Isn't that? I thought it had to be like a qualified DNS thing.
Oh yeah, it's just on the main thing. So it's like bsky.app/whatever it is. I always have to look it up, but let me just look it up real quick.
I see how I saw what you were doing there. Yeah, I saw that. You were like, I'm just gonna give them part of the never find me. I'm a security guy. Woo! Off into obscurity I go.
Let's see. Here we go. So bsky.app and then at jzhaux.bsky.social.
Oh, wait. I don't actually know. Can you copy and paste that into the private chat and I'll put that in the public? I got it.
Yep.
I got part of it.
Uh-huh.
I'm glad the answer worked for you there.
Let's see.
Love this.
So
okay, look at that. Now we're cooking.
Yeah.
That is quite a URL.
I know, right?
Okay. Okay. Putting into the old chat there. There we go. Haha. Hey. All right. This has been a wonderful discussion with you, my friend. Thank you for taking the time. I know it's Friday and it's later in the day for you, so the fact that you're just hanging out has just been you're the best. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Anytime, Josh.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. Bye.